put a lot of pressure on yourself?
I used to not at all. I think now it just comes with the territory. I think no one wants to go backwards, and once you're fifth, there's not a lot of places to go up, especially with how competitive the field is. So there's always that pressure. Justin, my coach, will always say pressure is a privilege, and I agree with that. Um, but I just try to stay grounded in my like faith and things outside of CrossFit, and that usually helps.
What do you like to do outside of CrossFit when you're not in the gym?
Um, I mean, realistically, like when you're training really hard, you don't have energy to do much, if I'm being honest. Um, but when, let's say, like it's off season or I'm not actually in a hard training cycle, I love to go to dance classes if I can. Like drop-in classes, I really enjoy that. I love to read. I read a lot. Um, yeah, I love the beach. We don't have a beach here in Vegas, but I love the beach. I'm pretty simple.
What did you read this year? Anything that grabbed your attention?
Yeah, I like a lot of like fantasy genres. So, a couple favorites like what did I read this year that I really liked? Um, I get a couple the years mixed up. Time flies by.
It's okay.
What was the new one I read this year that I liked? There's a series called like What Did You Do That I Like? I think that's what it's called. I don't know. There's a lot. Fourth Wing, all the like very basic books going around right now. I love like the Fourth Wing series. I'm rereading. I like a little bit of everything, honestly.
Um, do you have any binge watching guilty pleasures?
Right now I'm watching Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
Uh, I've like watched it, and I always make it to like season like I can't remember what season, but it starts to get a little weird, and that's usually when I end up like pulling it. But I started over, so we'll see how far I get. Um, my husband and I just watched what did we just watch? Dexter, but I didn't really like it.
Yeah, I tried Dexter a couple times and never got into it.
The first season was interesting with the plot, but I started having dreams of like murders, and I was like, this is too much, just blood and dying.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a new show that I just started watching called Landman. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
Really good. Did you watch any of the Yellowstones?
I haven't, but I'm wanting to. That's on my list.
All right. So the executive producer behind Yellowstone is this guy named Taylor Sheridan, and apparently after Yellowstone, they just wrote him just like here's an open checkbook and you can do whatever you want because he's made all the Yellowstone sequels and prequels, and he made this other show called Lioness, which we're also currently watching, which
Okay.
is not nearly as good as Landman, but I'm telling you, Landman is this season. It just came out. You can still like we're only on episode 6 or 7, but it's Billy Bob Thornton and who else is in it? I forget their names, but it's really good. I highly recommend it. People are always asking, like, I know people always wanted a good show because we've all like seen them all. So I would highly recommend it. Do you have any big holiday traditions in your house?
Not really. My family's all in Oregon, and so I'm not there this year. Really, like we get together on Christmas Eve. That's usually like the plan, and just hang out. This year I'm gonna go to some friends from the gym, and I bought some stuff to play games that I saw on like TikTok, like different little like holiday games. So we'll see if we can pull that off. But no traditions really, just hang out with family and.
Do you have brothers and sisters or no?
I have one brother. He's 8, so he's kind of like a part-time kid. Uh,
Same
yeah.
parents?
Same mom, different dad.
Okay.
He's a cutie. I can't believe he's 8. Honestly, it's crazy.
I have I have three older sisters, and then we found out like 20 years ago we had another one. It was one of
Oh,
those like, oh, I did a DNA test and found out your
okay,
dad had me when he was 18 or something crazy. And
okay,
she was so excited to meet us, and we were just like, whatever, another plate at the table,
cool.
whatever, come on over.
So you guys close now?
No, I mean, I saw her a little bit because I was actually living with my dad then. And he's gone now, my dad. But yeah, we were kind of a little bit, but it's just weird. I mean, you've if somebody isn't in your whole life, I met her when I was in my late 20s, I guess. Um, but yeah, yeah, we're very chill. Like, so my wife and I, we have 3 kids,
Okay.
and we keep it like, we don't really, people are always like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. We're just chilling. Like, we have a lot going on with our house. So we just kind of like we're Jews. We don't really celebrate Christmas. So we'll like go to the movies tomorrow. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to Hanukkah actually with my friend on I think the 26th.
Okay, yeah. The first night is tomorrow night. It's always different, but yes, it's
Yeah,
always,
yeah.
yeah. So like, and they're older now that the presents are just like, do you want to open them on the first night? Do you want to open them on the last night? Like, they're too old to like give them something every day. Like when they're little, you give them something little every day. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, we're pretty low key with that stuff.
Yeah.
So what are you how much, like, do you give yourself a couple weeks off during the holidays? Like when does serious training start again?
Well, unfortunately, I hurt my shoulder at Rogue, so it's been serious as far as what I can do. So we've been hitting the running and everything I can do hard, but just little bumps in the road. So I just got PRP, so I'll have to take it easy on my shoulder for a few days, and then I got sick, so naturally a couple days off. Um, yeah, I if I wanted to take the day off, I could tell Justin like, "Hey, it's Christmas, like I'm gonna take the day off." But usually, depending on the schedule, I'll just train at least one session, just because. I mean, the holidays don't really aren't all day, but yeah. So I take time off when I need it, but it's kind of ideally it'd be serious training.
But you're not one of those people. Some people just can't. They just cannot take a rest day, and they're just too crazy about it.
Oh no, I've learned like I mean I never really was crazy about it, but I've just learned and proved time and time again that like running yourself into the dirt doesn't do you any favors. Like obviously this injury was an accident, but like I've had injuries in the past that were more due to like not listening to my body or overuse, and in those situations it's better to take one day off and or maybe 2 days off than have to take 2 weeks or 2 months or however long off of like certain movements. So I'm pretty good about listening to my body.
Well, I think that's a tricky one, right? And I want to ask what you would say to people who ask you about that, because we lie to ourselves, right? We what's the word? We rationalize for ourselves a lot, because that's kind of what the brain does. It's like survival, right? So we can overwork because we don't rest enough, or we can find an excuse to not train. You know what I'm saying? So how do you find that balance? I mean, I think especially at a really, really high level that you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on like what your goals and priorities are, and then B like how much you love it, or if you're just doing it as like a job. Because like if you do enjoy training, um, you're less likely to make excuses not to do it. For myself, like the way I kind of say it is like if I was doing any other job, so say I was like worked a desk job or I worked at Starbucks, like would I want the day off if that was my job? Um, kind of thing. If it's like mental burnout or whatever. And usually if the answer is like, yeah, I would take the day off no matter what, then like take the day off. If it's a physical injury, I just like it's really not worth it to hurt it, so I'll just try to sub something. If I'm sick, I used to try to train through the first few days, but I realized it's not that productive. So I feel like if you have your priorities straight and like it's important to you, you generally won't make excuses.
What have you thought about what they've told us so far about this year's CrossFit season?
Kind of looks like a hot mess, to be honest. Um, I
Why do they have to complicate it so much? Why can't they ever just like keep anything relatively? It seems like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I
this
know
year.
there's, I listen,
Oh,
I know people always hate change, but my goodness, they seem to not be able to get their act together.
yeah, this year I'm sure a lot of the changes are due to financially, like they don't have a huge title sponsor to cover all the semifinals and stuff. So it makes sense that they're trying to use third parties that will pay for the event, and then they'll just like get their athletes from those events. So it's all a financial thing for sure what they're doing, because it wouldn't make sense otherwise. Online semifinals sounds like a joke. um, I think that there is an element of live competition that kind of weeds out people. You can test things you can't test in a gym, like running, like long running, um, maybe like more high skill elements. And just the like element of live competition. Some people choke under pressure, and they're really comfortable in their
Some
own
people
gym.
shine under pressure.
Yeah, so a lot of people are really comfortable with their own bar, their own uh, pull-up bar, their own weights, their own bike. Like there is an element of being out of your comfort zone, and you go when you're not ready. You go at 8 a.m. whether you're tired or you're not. You go at 8 p.m. So I think the online kind of like takes the element away that's really important when qualifying athletes to the games. But with that said, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I actually just signed with the WFP, which I'm sure you've seen.
That was my next question,
Yeah.
Alex.
Yeah, there you go.
So what? So what? Here's my first question. Do you know who's behind it besides Will Morad?
I do actually. I was with the whole crew during the inception of the league. So
Okay.
I'm very familiar with the whole crew. They're actually really good friends of mine. Um they live in Hawaii. I was there after the games to, yeah, I was there after the games to kind of hang out, start training again. And um, they all were just sitting around a table and they're like, essentially, like, F it, let's do it. And they just sat down and started planning it. And
Was
here we
this
are.
before Lazar?
No, this was after.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it was just like this window of opportunity to create the change that a lot of people have wanted. But I'm stoked about it. I obviously it's gonna start off a little small. Like people are like, oh, like these like 6-figure contracts, and it's not like that yet. It's not like football, where we're just guaranteed a huge salary. But I do think that this format has the ability to grow. Um, Whereas the games, because it's so niche and just one time, it's really hard to have that fan base and viewership that other sports would have. Um, the hope is there's some sort of like televised like storyline so people can kind of get invested. Otherwise, we're
Did you
probably
did
gonna.
you did you see JY and those guys talking about storylines versus competition?
I don't know if I'm sure I've seen clips of it or something, but it's important. Like no one really cares unless they're invested in some
Well,
way.
it was a really good clip because this is the Spin guys, by the way.
Mm.
It was a really good clip because I think it's a little of both, right? Like, you know, I forgot who said it now. I forgot whose side was on whose side. But, like Rebecca Fuselier on the stairs, right? Like at the Capitol steps, like whether you knew her or not, that was fucking amazing, right? That was this moment of physical, everything, right?
Mm.
So that's the competition piece. But also, we know like getting to know the stars and getting to learn people's backgrounds and all that stuff is also a big part of it. So I think it's a little of both. If you're building a sport, you definitely need stars and you need athletes, right? You
Mhm.
definitely, and that's one thing because CrossFit has come up in the age of media, like it's way more than before, right? Like in the 1970s, right? Like there was we walking away from the dogs or something?
No, I'm grabbing water.
Okay. If people knew the quarterback of the biggest team, but that's it, right? But in with this age, you can build your own following based on your athletic ability, based on sponsors, based on the kind of content you do, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so yeah, they're gonna have to build some stories, and yeah, you got to have the top guys to start with, and then from there, I think you can grow it. It's always fascinating because you know people people always say there's this clear distinction, right? There's the CrossFit community and then there's the games, right? And it's kind of always that way. Even so, I cover this HYROX stuff a lot, right? So there's only 15 people or 30 people that are the best of the best that get to compete at the higher world champs, but thousands of us do the race every week. And so that's how you grow something, right? So I just think you need a little of both.
Yeah, I think to grow viewership, people need to like understand it. Like, I've never played football, but I understand it, so I can watch it. Um, the thing about CrossFit is like people that do CrossFit understand it, so it's fun to watch because they're like, wow, these athletes are lifting 200, 300, 400 pounds. I can barely lift 100. That's amazing.
Somebody did a
Where,
massive deadlift named Alex that I know.
yeah, I did. Thank you. Um, yeah, so like if you were walking down the aisles of a store and you saw someone and like you have to be able to explain CrossFit and that's kind of hard to do. So hopefully there's some way to create a storyline and create a way for people to want to watch that maybe don't do CrossFit yet.
Well, I think part of the problem you have, and I think I'm a somewhat outsider, right? I don't live and breathe CrossFit like you do, like the spin guys do. And so I think I'm a pretty good judge of things. And I think that if you think about it like the average viewer, right? So the average guy flipping around and seeing, although we don't flip as much these days, but even I guess YouTube we kind of flip through. And if this thing comes up, here's this competition, even if you don't understand, I mean, like who can lift the heaviest? That's an easy one, right? But that's the last day, right? So typically, right? But other stuff, they don't necessarily need to know what they're watching, like exactly, but they just see like these 10 extremely fit bodies, men or women, like doing these kipping pull-ups. Like, holy shit, I don't know how they're doing that, but that's amazing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
stop them enough to watch it, even if they don't understand, you know, the rules or whatever.
Yeah, so the media just needs to be done well enough that it's like that. Because if you just click to a random spot in the middle of the live feed during the competition, you don't know what's going on. You know what I mean, though? Like, depending on who's announcing and what they're doing, but a lot of times there's like, I've watched events where I'm like, if I did not know what was happening
Can
and
you
I
give an
turned this on.
example? I don't want you to throw anybody into the bus, but just can you give an example of an event that like you thought, wow, nobody would understand this if they didn't know? Because I could listen to Sean Woodland describe anything, by the way. So,
I know. Well, yeah, he wasn't here this year.
oh,
Um, uh, I don't have a specific one, but if you watch, I don't want to throw.
no, it's not about throwing the announcer under the bus, or you're just saying like, hey,
No,
this event doesn't quite make sense without a deep knowledge of CrossFit.
yeah, like if you watch someone doing a CrossFit event, right? Like people don't. If you didn't do CrossFit, okay, so you don't understand what a Metcon is, what a WOD is, and you see someone running from the pull-up bar to the GHD to the barbell, and they're doing like let's see, they're doing GHDs, which like some people have never seen that before. They're doing kipping pull-ups, and then they go to the barbell and they're doing like snatches. If you just turn that on, you're like, what is happening? Like, how many rounds are they supposed to do? Like, what's the point? Is it heavy? Is it light?
Right.
And that's I'm not. It's not easy to like explain that. So there, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I just
But
know
see,
it's
that's where I think you guys, I think CrossFit is a little bit of just a victim of growth because if if the idea is, well, we've got to outdo last year, we've got to be so creative and we've got to be bigger, faster, stronger, better. That's kind of the problem, right? Like I've said, you know, when I watch you guys, I'm like, are they locking out at all? Like it's not because you're not, it's just because it doesn't look like it, right? Even though you probably are at whatever particular thing it was. But when you're doing things fast, that's the opposite of what the movement is.
yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying?
kind of. I mean, it's just a
So,
complicated sport, but
well,
it's
so like if Tia's on ring muscle ups, right? Or Tia's doing really anything, the speed at which she does it, like how do you stop to judge? Is she's not ever gonna lock, right? Like stop. You know what I'm saying?
I disagree. I think you can see it. I think you can see people's good or bad reps. If you
You
can't,
could definitely see a bad one, but
yeah.
I think a lot of times it's just it's happening, and they do miss it, right? We watch we'll see something where they go, oh, actually they didn't when when we watch it back, when we watch the replay, like, oh, actually they missed that
Oh
one.
yeah, no, in-person judging is full of error, just like any sport, right? Like any ref call.
Right.
Um, it's more detrimental to a single person,
Right.
which
I'm just saying
sucks.
it when within the context of what we're talking about, it doesn't help you guys. That's all. That the
Yeah, yeah,
fact
yeah.
that the stakes keep being raised in terms of level of difficulty or speed or number of reps, or we don't want to see the same thing every time, right? But there
Mhm.
is some value in following along. Let's measure this versus last year's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's why many of us had a hard time with the stupid 5K, because it's like, well, now every time you do a 5K, you're going to measure against this thing that you know is not 5K.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's definitely like there's always flaws and stuff, but yeah, I'm interested to see how this year turns out. It'll be interesting.
Do we know who is funding the World Fitness Project?
I don't know of the sponsors. I know that they have talked to people and there's gonna be some sponsors. Um, but I do know the initial, like they have some people personally funding the some initial costs.
Like private equity or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, do you think at some point someone would have to decide one or the other, or is Will's idea that you could always do both?
Um, my my hope is that it grows to the point where like it is like the sport. Like instead of because right now the model is 3 events because it's starting, but the idea is like it could grow to like 8 events, but you only have to do three because you're scored on three, like with the final. But you could go to one for fun and it doesn't matter, like golf, like a golf tour. Like you go and you get your points, and then if you want to just go mess around one weekend, you can. Um, and as these events grow, the prize purse will grow. So my hope is that that model is what becomes like the sport. Um, for professional athletes, but it's not a sustainable model for a professional athlete.
What do you think CrossFit would say to that if you asked them?
Um, well, I
Because they
mean,
can't be thrilled, right?
yeah, but I also think like the CrossFit Games didn't start with the intention of being this huge, crazy sport. The CrossFit Games started as, hey, like the best of your affiliates, like let's go throw down at the ranch and like have some fun. And then it evolved to the sport, which is awesome, but they've always been so tight knit with the like affiliate like community that it's never grown into a sport. It's always been this like, I don't know, just like pedestal for people in affiliates to be like, wow, like this is really cool. But it's not. I mean, I'd say like yes, like people live off of it and can be professional, but you're not making money unless you're in the top 5 or you have crazy sponsors. Um, so I don't know. They might disagree with me, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's a professional sport based off the sport because you're reliant on endorsements and social media. So like I'll use an athlete like Paige Semenza who's made the games 5 6 times. I don't a lot. She's made the games quite a bit. She's incredible. She's done well at Rogue. She like is a great athlete, but like she's not living off of the sport full time. Like she's not making enough money to live. So I don't think they could argue with me that it's a professional sport. Um, when I made the games, I lost money competing. Like I made enough to pay for my hotel room, and I like
What year are you
you're
talking
the
about?
top 40 in 22, like you're the top 40 in the world at something that you're doing and you're losing money. Like it's not a professional sport.
Can I ask what you get for fifth?
In 23, I don't quite remember. I think it was like 45 or
Right,
50 for
right.
fifth.
Not horrible, but again,
Yeah.
it's like your full time life
No, no.
and not really a lot.
Like that was great in the sense of like okay, like that's enough money to like live off of, right? Like if you need to, you can live off of that. Um But then like this year I got 10th and 10th is like 28 or I think 20 28 somewhere around there. Um which again like you could live off of
They
it,
throw in
but
some Fit
like
Aid or something, maybe a couple cases of rain.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't it's cool money, but like you can't depend
Right.
on it. Like it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously you do have sponsors, and how do you, for you, is it something that you like, you have to make content, you have to do that stuff? Are you someone who naturally does that and likes it, or is it more like, this is a job but I understand it's my job?
Yeah, I feel like I go through phases. Like I like content and it's fun, but it's hard to do by yourself. And it's hard to create content that's just not always like an ad thrown in your
Right.
face. Like, hey, here, drink my protein. Hey, here, buy my shoes. Hey, here, buy my toe spaces. Like people people unfollow you for that.
Sorry.
Like they don't
I'm sorry. I'm,
it's
I'm not trying to
okay.
set you up either, but listen, I'm a guy that makes content for a living and I got to get paid for stuff. So it really helps if you really like it, right? But those aren't every product. You know what I mean? I just got these caffeine pills
Yeah.
and I'm a caffeine addict. So it's like, amazing. This is awesome. But like, yeah, sometimes you just got to do the thing.
Yeah, and like I like all my I'm trying to be really integrable.
Sure.
How would you say that? I c-
Have
yeah,
integrity,
when
Alex.
I
Do you want
like
to have
have
integrity, or do you want to be
yeah.
integraful?
Yeah, have to be integrable. I try to do that when I have sponsors so it is authentic and like it is stuff I like and I'm not just trying to sell something that I wouldn't use. Um, but what my point is like if you have the same post every month of like because a lot of sponsors are specific, they want specific things from you and like if you post every month like hey buy these shoes buy this buy that like people literally do unfollow you like my engagement on an ad style post
Of
down the
course.
toilet if I post something where like I'm lifting or I'm actively doing something and the product is in the post but it's not like the focus it's just like there way better.
Right.
um so it's just interesting. I'm like I said I'm not a content creator. I'm working with what I got. um yeah, it could be better,
And
could be
who do
worse.
you work with? Who are you managed by? Oh,
Backland agency,
they're the best.
so Lucille
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Star. Yeah,
yeah.
they're great. They're awesome.
I just saw them in England for the
Yeah,
Fit
they're
Fest.
awesome.
Okay, well, so
So
listen, well then, yeah, they'll have your back. You're in good shape. You're in good hands.
yeah, they're awesome.
Because yeah, I think it's like the oldest tale, on fucking radio shows in the 20s, like 100 years ago. It's like, this is sponsored by this soap, this cigarette, and like they get the stars to read the
Mhm.
ad. It's like it's part of life, and I think people are forgiving in a way if you are genuine, right? If you're constantly shoving down the throat,
Yeah,
then you're like, unfollow. But it's like, we know Alex has to make a living. We understand that every month we're
yeah,
going to see X amount of posts. If you're not if you're
and I
not
think that was
if you're
the
not if
other.
you're not slammy about it.
Yeah, and I think that was the other idea of this model is that it actually gives a better opportunity for sponsors to want to be involved. Um, because I'll use the games as an example, like because their title sponsor is usually a clothing brand, you have to wear that brand. So if you're signed with Tier or in my case Born Primitive, like that's a huge platform that they don't get to use. And so they pay you all year and then like the biggest competition of the year you're not wearing their stuff. um, and so the idea of this model is like there's going to be three for this year but three bigger opportunities for like sponsors to showcase their products and the athletes to represent those things. um, so hopefully that will be helpful so it won't be just social media it will be like other athletes you see that they're drinking Gatorade during their sport. They're wearing the Nike cleats. And that's like most professional athletes, social media is like the bonus endorsements. Like, hey, I eat Subway, like go buy Subway, not like I you know?
Um, but they don't have a gear sponsor this year, do they? Yeah, they don't have
CrossFit
GoRuck
Games?
anymore.
I don't know if they have a title sponsor.
Well,
That's
even
why I'm like
last
I don't
year,
even
even
know what the
last year, it
price.
wasn't the GoRuck Games. GoRuck was just the affiliate and apparel sponsor, or the apparel and shoe sponsor.
Yeah, but I think they fronted a good chunk of money for the prize. Like whoever the big sponsor is of the games, like they front a huge chunk. I don't know. This year will be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so I've known about GoRuck since the early days. GoRuck kind of started when obstacle racing did, which is my background, when CrossFit did, and they were very much their own lane. Like, people like these bags, and the people in that rucking community like to get together and ruck around and drink beer or whatever. And then they started sponsoring athletes. And I was like, this is kind of the opposite of what you're known for. And it just seemed weird. And so the fact that they're gone after a year is like, not surprised.
Well, I think they probably didn't get as good of a return too with the state of the games. Like
Wasn't
it's
it wasn't a
just
good year for that to happen. But again, that they were the only sponsor like going into the games. That was before the stuff happened. You know what I mean? It wasn't like going
yeah.
into the
No, I
games they
know.
had a title.
Well, I don't think the games has ever been profitable.
Right, but it's what we call a
So I
lost
don't think
leader, right? Like this puts our sport on the map and then all this other stuff.
yeah, but I don't know if GoRuck was a big enough company to be
But
the
how do they
lost
not know
leader.
that?
Like
But how do they not
Reebok,
know that going into it? It's not year one of the
maybe they
games.
were maybe they weren't like told how much money.
Year 15 of the games, Go Ruck. And I know they did smaller
Yeah, but
stuff
maybe they
before.
didn't.
They sponsored events. They did runs with Rucks. Like I get all that, but no, I just
Yeah, but maybe they just didn't realize the loss that it could be. Like I think like a company like Reebok has so much money. Like I think I don't know where I saw this, but I saw like a picture of their contract when the games was in Madison, and it was like however much $1 million they had towards the games, and so like they just fronted all this money, but for a company like Reebok,
it's nothing.
it's not. Yeah, it's not like they're like, oh, if we don't break even, we're fucked. Whereas like a company like GoRock or maybe Noble at the time, like they don't have that excess
Right.
money.
Yeah, um I'm sorry, but like you're not gonna get people to wear Go Ruck shoes to like do everything in. I just don't know what they thought. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it was kind of a bummer for them too because they only had I think like the trainers and the runners, or they gave us like a couple shoes and they were fine, they were great, but like even if you didn't have a shoe sponsor already, so if you have a shoe sponsor, you're wearing your sponsor, but say you didn't, say you're a rookie and you're like you don't have one yet, if you need lifters,
I was gonna
GoRuck
say
doesn't
you
have
can't.
lifters,
What
so
are you gonna
then
lift
you're
in this fucking giant rucking shoes?
so then so then you're already advertising a different shoe company. So it's a bummer for them. They were super nice, and I'm sure
Yeah,
like their
I know
stuff was
people that work
great,
there,
but
but like, yeah, it just seems like a weird. It seems like a weird match to me. I mean, I'm super interested in this WFP. I messaged Will. I hope he'll come on the show. He'll probably do the bigger CrossFit shows first, and that's fine. Um, I'm supposed to talk to Chandler in a few weeks. I've known him a while, and he's the best, dude.
he's very kind. He's a really good dude.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Thanks for talking on Christmas Eve day. Because I know we had to move it
Absolutely.
a couple of times. I couldn't remember. That's when I saw you in the calendar, I was like, did we move this? Because sometimes I forget to move it in the calendar, but I knew we'd already moved it. Well, listen, I hope to see you at something. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah, of course.
regionals or sanctionals, there's two of them in Tennessee, right? You would do one of those, right?
Maybe I don't know.
Because
It was so
there
funny
isn't,
before
it's
I
not,
saw
they're
the
not doing like West Coast Classic or whatever, right?
no, before I saw the post of the sanctional announcements, Justin texted me just Oklahoma question mark, and I hadn't seen that post yet, and I was like, what are you talking about, Oklahoma? And then he sent me the post. I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know. We'll go to one of them, I'm sure.